We are live on the Two Never Ending Kingdom show. And today we need to talk about the buzziness news in the world, chat. And there is a lot of buzziness news going on. And let's have a listen to the current
So the prediction kind of came true that, you know, this is kind of what shareholders.
let's have a listen.
So the prediction kind of came true that, you know, this is kind of what shareholders expected. Now the bidding war begins.
Again, yeah. Yeah. So
or sorry, the bidding war continues.
Yeah, exactly. 4 business days. So Wednesday, Netflix has till to respond, and it could just raise its offer by $1, and that would sort of put it in the same context of where it was before, or it may go higher, or they may walk. Again, right now we think Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, is in the White House making the case for his deal still. So all indications are that they still want to participate.
So Paramount commenting too. Did you say this? Forgive me if I missed this. Commenting on the Warner Brothers board's determination, Paramount will cut Warner Brothers' potential $1.5 billion financing costs. Paramount has $57.5 billion debt commitment, from lenders, has commitments from Bank of America, Citi, and Apollo. And that was a sticking point, right, Chris, earlier on. Warner Brothers Discovery was a little concerned about the financing part of Paramount Skydance's bid.
Yeah, this shows how this transaction has evolved from December. It's more than just $1 more a share that Paramount's offering. They've significantly increased they'll backstop. Larry Ellison is personally backstopping all the equity that they're going to put into the deal, plus 40+ billion. He's backstopping some of the debt they're refinancing, some $15 billion worth. They've committed to a much higher termination fee. If they don't get regulatory approval, they would pay $7 billion, and they agreed to pay $2.8 billion to Warner Brothers, which would then send it to Netflix to get them out of the Netflix deal. So a staggeringly large amount of money that Paramount's committing here.
So ball's in Netflix's court at this point. What do analysts think it comes back with?
I think momentum has been lately moving against Netflix and into Paramount, that they're the ultimate winner. I've certainly heard that from a lot of people.
Wait, sorry, who's the ultimate winner?
Paramount is the ultimate winner, yeah. So
that changed quickly, Chris.
It has. Yeah, it definitely has. They've been very aggressive. They played every single card they can think of, from the lobbying to the proxy fight to the changing the terms. They've really worked everything.
I'm just looking at what Netflix stock is doing after hours. Again, this was expected, but after hours Netflix stock is up 0.7%. And just a reminder of where it closed today, up 2.3% today, up 6% yesterday, and on Tuesday, up 2.7%. Investors like the idea of the company not spending all this money and going into debt.
$2.8 billion. They could make a lot more movies and TV shows. And what they're doing.
Hey, what does this mean for Hollywood?
That's a funny thing, because Paramount has sort of made the case that they're a better buyer of this asset, largely because of Netflix's historical opposition to putting movies in movie theaters. But this is still the consolidation of 2 of the 5 biggest movie studios, consolidation of 2 of the biggest operators of cable TV channels, 2 big streaming services. There's going to be a lot of job cuts. Paramount's CEO David Ellison is trying to make the case that he's going to increase movie production in particular.
Japanese.
But that remains to be seen. This is definitely more turmoil in the short run for Hollywood.
Hey, just to wrap up, Chris here. So 4 days. So wait, does now Netflix have until Sunday, or when?
Business days. So Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right.
But the lawyers will be working over the weekend, Carol. Don't worry.
Probably.
Today on Forbes, what the Paramount-Warner Brothers merger means for Larry Ellison's fortune.
Okay, so Larry Ellison.
If regulators clear it, one of the largest mergers in history will hand billionaire Larry Ellison and his son David unprecedented sway over American media. CBS and CNN under one roof, HBO Max and Paramount Plus fused, Warner Brothers and Paramount Pictures sharing a parent. That's on top of the tech and real estate empire the elder Ellison, Oracle's chief technology officer, President Donald Trump's new neighbor, and the world's sixth richest person, already controls. Last August, the Ellisons took control of Paramount in an $8 billion merger with Skydance, the entertainment company run by David and owned mostly by Larry. Weeks later, Paramount Skydance lobbed a hostile $111 billion bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, which had already agreed to sell itself to Netflix. Netflix declined to counter. Warner's board deemed Paramount's offer superior. The Ellison-controlled entity is now in pole position to buy a company with a roughly $70 billion market cap for a triple-digit billion-dollar price. Here's the problem. Paramount has just $3 billion in cash on its balance sheet. To bridge the gap, 3 big banks are committing $57.5 billion in debt. Most of the rest, a $45.7 billion equity commitment, is coming from Larry Ellison's trust. And that's where the math starts to get tight. Ellison has only sold $4.7 billion of Oracle stock pre-tax this century. By Forbes estimates, he has less than $10 billion of cash in the bank, mostly from Oracle dividends. He also owns an estimated $15 billion in Tesla shares amassed during his tenure as a Tesla director, which ended in 2022. Even if he liquidated all of that, it wouldn't fully cover his commitment, which leaves the longest, most valuable lever: Oracle stock. Ellison owns 1.16 billion Oracle shares, currently worth $164 billion.
Interesting.
Selling off a meaningful chunk would almost certainly spook Oracle shareholders, already queasy over Oracle's heavy debt load and skyrocketing spending on AI data centers. Big insider sales tend to land like jump scares. According to a September regulatory filing, Ellison had 346 million pledged Oracle shares, quote, to fund outside personal business ventures. They were worth more than $100 billion then, and about $50 billion now. Even at the lower end, that's enough to cover Ellison's commitment without him selling a single Oracle share and triggering a sell-off. No need to sell the crown jewels if you can mortgage them instead. For an 81-year-old tech founder who once seemed to be drifting towards retirement on Lanai in Hawaii, the pivot to media mogul seems abrupt. But Ellison has a well-earned reputation as mercurial and has rarely played the expected move. In 1993, Ellison told Forbes, quote, "We've always gone against convention. Convention is like playing chess and being black and always copying white's moves. What a surefire way to lose." So, a better alternative is to flip the board.
Got some great shows.
Should the deal
Chad.
be approved, the combined company would consolidate legacy rivals across news, streaming, and kids programming. CBS and CNN, HBO Max and Paramount Plus, Warner Brothers and Paramount Pictures, and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, all under the same parent company. Typically, that would lead to heavy antitrust scrutiny from the Department of Justice and Federal Communications Commission. But the Ellisons' chummy relationship with the Trump administration could be a ward against regulators' attempts to shut down the merger. And media would become just one pillar of an already sprawling empire. Larry Ellison owns more than 40% of Oracle, which in turn owns 15% of TikTok's U.S. entity via a government brokered deal. Ellison also has a $3 billion real estate portfolio, including $500 million in Florida property and an entire Hawaii island, as well as an estimated $2 billion stake in Elon Musk's merged SpaceX XAI entity. The Warner deal would tower over it all. Oracle has acquired more than 150 companies, many via debt-heavy deals, but its largest to date, buying health tech firm Cerner for $28 billion in 2022, looks modest beside a $111 billion media roll-up. The deal would make Ellison much more powerful, but if financed by stock sales rather than pledges, could hurt his fortune before it helps. For full coverage, check out Phoebe Liu's piece on Forbes.com. This is Kieran Meadows from Forbes.
Breaking news, yet another voice raising a warning this afternoon about the bidding war battle to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. This one coming from Hollywood's home state. About 2.5 hours ago, California Attorney General Rob Bonta issued a statement demanding that both Netflix and Paramount Skydance's proposed mergers must receive a, quote, full and robust review because further consolidation in markets that are central to American economic life does not serve our economy, consumers, or competition. Well, in fact, consolidation of markets, he continues, has led to increased unaffordability, a loss of good-paying job opportunities, and fewer choices for consumers. His comments come after legendary Titanic, Terminator, and Avatar director James Cameron, whose films have made more than $10 billion at global box offices, sent up a warning flare last night, specifically about Netflix's $82.7 billion all-cash deal for Warner Brothers Discovery. In a letter to Utah Senator Mike Lee, who's the chairman of the subcommittee on antitrust, competitive policy, and consumer rights, Cameron wrote, quote, "The business model of Netflix is directly at odds with the theatrical film production and exhibition business, which employs hundreds of thousands of Americans. Theaters will close. Fewer films will be made. Service providers such as visual effects companies will go out of business. The job losses will spiral."
Interesting. Okay.
Joining me now in his first reaction to that letter and the latest developments is Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos. Ted, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Quite the poison pen letter James Cameron wrote. He did say, I have the letter, he did say Mr. Sarandos is a good person, but he outright has endorsed Paramount's bid, and that Netflix ownership, he said, of WBD would be a, quote, disaster. What is your response to Jim Cameron?
Well, look, if you think you were surprised by that letter, I was particularly surprised. I met with James personally in late December and laid out for him our 45-day commitment to theatrical exhibition of films and to the Warner Brothers slate. I have talked about that commitment in the press countless times. I swore under oath in front of the Senate Subcommittee on Antitrust that's what we will be doing. So I'm particularly surprised and disappointed that James chose to be part of the Paramount disinformation campaign that's been going on for months about this deal.
Well, yeah, one thing in his letter, he flat out said that you guys were putting in, pledging a theatrical release window of just 17 days, which he called ridiculously short. I have heard you over and over say it's 45 days. Can you clarify here and now?
It's 45 days of theatrical exclusivity. That has been clear from the beginning. I have never even uttered the word 17-day window. So I don't know where it came from or why he would be part of that machine. I responded to Senator Lee's letter this morning, so we'll see where he goes.
You know, another one of his stated concerns, pretty much the chief concern, that if Netflix prevails, you guys will winnow down the current 15 movies per year WBD releases to theaters, which he said would be a death knell to theater operators and creators.
Interesting.
Is that true?
Again, an ironic claim, considering that in the alternative to our deal, we will keep the Warner Brothers film and television studio running largely as it is today. Movies going to the theaters for 45 days, a healthy, robust slate of films every year. That is going to continue. This deal is contingent on that for it to work. All of that is priced into the deal. The $4 billion of theatrical revenue that Warner Brothers made last year, we want to keep winning on that threshold, and we want to keep investing on it. You know, they just opened their 9th #1 movie in a row. They know exactly what they're doing here, and we want to continue that healthy business. It is in the alternative. Paramount has vowed here to cut $6 billion out of that business. Mm-hmm. Now, if you do the math, they've also vowed to delever the business from where it's going to be 6 to 7 times down to 2.5 times. And to do that, they would have to cut $16 billion out of that company in very short order. Now, if you look at that and say, where are you going to make $16 billion worth of cuts? You can only do that in production and people, cutting jobs. And one thing that Netflix has been, I'm very proud of our track record on production in America, creating jobs. Our productions have created 155,000 jobs in America, $250 billion of economic impact in America from our production. And we're vowing to continue to invest in that like we've been investing in Netflix for the last 25 years.
You know, I don't know if there's something wrong with how you guys are messaging this out there, because we do look at the numbers. You have not only created jobs, but I mean, New Jersey's right across the river here. You've broken ground on $1 billion expense to create 12 sound stages and hire, I would imagine, a lot of people. Will actual feature films be shot on those sound stages? I mean, that to me, you could put that out there if it's true, and that might calm some of the Hollywood elite.
We have been putting it out there. There's a picture of us breaking ground on this ceremony with Governor Murphy. We put together a production incentive in the state of New Jersey that competes with every other country in the world, that will strengthen the American economy. You know, people forget this is a gigantic business. This isn't just the production, but it's also the hospitality industry, the transportation industry, the catering, all the different things, dry cleaners, all those American businesses that support production all around the country. We are doing a lot. We're going to film a lot in New Jersey since we passed that incentive. We've moved 7 projects that we're supposed to shoot overseas. We're moved back to America and are shooting here. And we have a very ambitious slate of production going on there already. 11 films right now in production in New Jersey. So we're incredibly thrilled that these are, you know, to invest in America and invest in American jobs. And again, in the alternative, the Paramount deal that's floating around out there and all the misinformation swirling around it is guaranteeing to cut jobs. They're guaranteeing to continue to make gigantic cuts to the entertainment industry. And in the alternative, we're growing, and they are promising to cut.
Listen, all of Hollywood has been pressing the refresh button, and they will be all weekend long. They're waiting on Paramount Skydance's final offer. You allowed a 7-day window to be opened once again, even though you had a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery.
We have a deal.
You have the deal. Ted, you won. You're a tough negotiator. You had the deal. Why give them this last shot?
Look, first, we're very confident in the bid that we have, that it offers the most value to Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders and the best long-term value for Netflix as well. So confident that we wanted to make sure that we could deliver to Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders absolute confidence and certainty about this deal. If there's another deal floating out there, take this 7 days and better understand it, and then come back and let's get this thing done. The market doesn't like uncertainty. The industry cannot grow with a lot of uncertainty. We want to grow this business.
Well, that 7-day window is up on Monday. So have you heard, have you had any idea whether it will come before the end of business day today, ahead of the weekend? Will they wait till the last second? What would you do if you were the Ellisons?
I've left this for the Ellisons to work out with Warner Brothers Discovery. We're moving on business as usual. We are deep into the regulatory process with the DOJ, with the European regulators, with regulators around the world, and with state AGs to move this process along. I'm glad that there is this process. You know, it's very important, I think, to scrutinize a deal of this size, scrutinize the buyer and the seller.
Fox Market Alert. Well, the ink has now apparently been put to paper. Warner Brothers Discovery executives announcing at a town hall this morning, according to reports, that the deal has now been signed. Both the winner and the loser of this bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery are heading skyward. Paramount Skydance rocketing up 19.6%. That's not even the high of the session, by the way. Netflix gaining 13%, topping the NASDAQ. This after Paramount finally emerged as the victor in the merger war. Yesterday, after the bell, WBD officially deemed CEO David Ellison's new $31 a share bid superior to Netflix's $27.75 offer. Netflix was then granted 4 business days to match or counter, but just an hour and 10 minutes later, Netflix surprised just about everybody by announcing, we're done. The deal no longer financially attractive. They summarily walked away, leaving Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav with, yes, a better bid than when the process began back in November, but with no more money to squeeze from this process. WBD shares down 2% at the moment to $28.19. But what are the stock moves really speak to about what happens next? Media analyst Rich Greenfield of Lightshed Partners, who's been calling balls and strikes on the deal for months now, is with us now. Rich, your gut reaction first to how this came down last night.
Interesting. So
Look,
Paramount,
it's always surprising. I think, there was so much, Netflix put so much effort into this. Seeing them have the discipline to just walk away and not get caught in an ever-increasing price battle was fascinating. I certainly didn't see it. Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters had spent so much time, advocating and trying to make the case for this deal. And I think the ability to sort of just cut bait and move forward and literally not even flinch is something you don't see. I mean, I think there's, so often emotions take over and you get caught in this. And I think not overpaying. I mean, look, we were on your show not too long ago talking about, Paramount. Do they really want to be 7 times levered? Do they really want to be, is this really the right transaction? Paramount wants this. They believe that to accelerate their strategy, they need Warner Brothers, and they were willing to pay any price to win. They won. Now they've got to prove, now they've got to execute, right? Like we are still in the first 6 months since they bought Paramount, meaning Skydance. Now we're in buying Warner Brothers. There's a tremendous amount of execution risk, and all eyes are going to be on David Ellison. I've never seen a company go from, single-digit billions of value to now being
Skydance,
something that's going to be worth $100 billion, like in the matter of 12 months.
Okay, so notwithstanding the current, at this second, 19.5% jump in Paramount Skydance shares and the big jump for Netflix, 24 hours later, who looks smarter, Paramount for winning at 31 a share or Netflix for walking away with $2.8 billion, Richard, thanks to Paramount covering the breakup fee? By the way, hitting the tape right now, Bloomberg reports that $2.8 billion breakup fee owed to Netflix for dropping their bid has been paid already, that it's been paid. So who looks smartest?
I mean, look, you just said 24 hours, Liz, and I don't think this is a 24 hours. Like, it's going to take time. This is what's going to happen. Investors are going to look at this or have been thinking about, was Warner Brothers a need to have or a like to have from a Netflix standpoint?
Well, they said it was a like to have.
Correct. We're going to find out, right? How do you find out? We're going to see Netflix's results over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. Are they able to accelerate engagement without buying this? Are they able to continue to grow revenues double digits? Like, if management executes, they're going to prove to people this would have been great at the right price, but they didn't need it. But that takes time. You don't learn that in 24 hours. That's going to be the bet. I believe they didn't need it, but I think for investors to believe it, and I think there's relief this morning or today, just simply that they're not chasing this going too far and putting up too much leverage. I think that's part of the relief from a Netflix standpoint. From a Paramount standpoint, I think this is, now they're a real company. I think people sort of looked at Paramount and said, I don't know if this company is big enough to survive. I think they look at the combination and they go, the leverage probably is too high. There's probably going to be a large equity offering after this closes to delever, but at least they're big enough to survive now.
Well, listen, you talk about the debt that is so onerous. At least it turns out to be what will be the largest leverage buyout in history. And we can put up the numbers here. It's pretty stunning. According to, the earnings reports, most recent, Warner Brothers Discovery had about $30 billion in debt. Paramount, nearly $14 billion. Paramount also has to take on $57.7 billion in debt. They're going to borrow from Bank of America, Citigroup, Apollo, because those are the banks and entities providing that debt commitment. You've got the aortas just clogged with financial plaque. Once they take this thing over, how long before it clears out?
Well, Liz, when they bought Paramount, the excitement that we had over that transaction was that for the first time, I followed Viacom, the predecessor to Paramount, back to 1995.
I remember, yeah.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time that this company has been sort of hamstrung, sort of a hand tied behind its back, not able to invest. If you think about sort of the Redstone era, too levered, not able to really invest for the future, always short-term thinking, and that really hampered the company, and it showed in the stock price. The excitement of Skydance buying it was that you had actually delevered the balance sheet. Now you're dramatically re-leveraging the balance sheet. I think the question's going to be, how do they deleverage quickly? And is that an equity offering? Do they sell some assets? Like, those are the types of questions I think investors are really going to start to ask over the course of the next year. Because the reality is, being 7+ times levered at closing is not a great place to be in the media world, especially just looking at sort of the trajectory of linear TV.
Cool. And as we go, David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers, listen, he gets $31 a share when the stock was trading much lower just a year ago. But if you look back to 2021 and March, you see when he effectuated the Discovery Warner Brothers merger, that was a much higher stock. I mean, it was like $78 or something. It's shocking, isn't it, that nobody ever was able to really kind of reach that again really quickly.
Look, Liz, the reality is the legacy media sector overall is tough. I mean, your parent company has taken a very different tact, and it's actually worked out, from an fundamental standpoint. I think what Lachlan Murdoch and Rupert Murdoch have been able to achieve by narrowing the focus of the company and selling off a lot of assets to Disney.
Yeah, pretty brilliant.
That's been the really smart approach. Yeah. The reality is, trying to operate a company with a lot of linear TV, especially a lot of linear cable assets, everyone is struggling. I mean, Disney stock is down for the past decade.
Yeah.
Look at Comcast, down for the last decade. This is a very tough sector. The only reasons investors have really wanted to invest in media is when there's M&A. And that's what certainly created the opportunity in Warner over the course of the last 12 months, was the value creation from M&A. From a pure operating standpoint, outside of Fox, it's been really hard.
Well, Rich, you have to find something new to talk about, so we'll be watching it. Rich Greenfield, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
We got to start with Paramount. You chased this company for a couple of years, if not longer. If you look at what they own, they have a bunch of cable networks that have been in decline for almost as long as I've been doing my job. They have a movie studio that is, by most metrics, the last place movie studio the last few years, and a streaming service that, in terms of at least engagement, is sort of in the third tier. So why were you so interested in it? What do you see in the company that investors and a lot of other potential bidders did not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. First, I just want to say we couldn't be more excited about the place that we're starting with the asset that we purchased, right? We have 80 million streaming subscribers. We have one of the best, basically, content libraries in existence with Paramount and CBS. And I also think you need to distinguish when you talk about the linear business, right? There's cable, which, yes, has been in decline. But if you look at CBS, it actually is a remarkable asset that's been #1 in primetime for 17 straight seasons. Incredible sports rights, which we're growing, and is still highly profitable from a cash flow perspective. And I agree with you, has not been run in the best manner for the last 15 years. And for me, that's all opportunity. An opportunity to really reignite the creative content engines, to navigate the transition that's required to really turn Paramount Plus into a leader in streaming. And we believe we have the ability to both win in content and also become the most technologically capable media company to effectively navigate this transition. We always looked at, you can look at the music business 10 years ago. We believe we can navigate that. We also really looked at where traditional tech companies were, call it 10, 15 years ago. And there was a period of time where, the Microsofts of the world, the Oracles of the world were being disrupted. And those companies that actually disrupted themselves in transitions are now all trading at all-time highs. We believe we have the opportunity to do the same thing.
So you talked about streaming. You mentioned the 80 million subscribers earlier. You look at it, those monthly Nielsen reports that people pay a lot of attention to, right? YouTube's at 13% of TV viewing. Netflix is at between 8 and 9 most months. Paramount, when you combine Paramount Plus and Pluto, it sort of sits around 2%. You can correct me if I'm off there, but I think that's about right. So how do you get that up? Forget about 13 or 8, like Disney's in the 4 or 5 range. How do you get that up there? And you've talked about content and tech. Can you get specific on those fronts, like what you're going to do?
Absolutely. So look, one of the things we really believed in, look what I'll say, we're 9 weeks in, and I'm really proud of the momentum the team has been able to build over the last 9 weeks. One of the things we really believe, being the first owned and operated studio, to my knowledge, since actually Walt Disney built his own shop, was that we would have the opportunity to really think long-term. That means long-term partnerships with talent, where you can basically say, don't just think about your next movie or your next show. We want to build a relationship with you over a decade and actually say, we're going to make your next 4 or 5 movies, your next 4 or 5 series, and really think long-term and invest for long-term growth. The great news, when you look at, we had to win in content. I think we're well on our way to being able to do that. If you look at specifics, right? We were able to get obviously the UFC deal is one of the first things we announced when we came over. We are incredibly proud that Activision chose to partner with us on Call of Duty, which is the most successful video game franchise of all time with 500 million units sold. We're able to have James Mangold come over and obviously call his, as one of the greatest filmmakers working, to call Paramount home. Boulder Light, who obviously had incredible hits like Weapons earlier this year. In addition to that, we've been able to secure high-profile packages for, with streaming with basically Paramount Plus. And then we're also really reinvigorating what we're doing in news with CBS News with the acquisition of the Free Press. And then I think when you look at CBS's broadcast lineup, I think we have the strongest lineup, maybe arguably in the company's history. And so I think we've really successfully reinvigorated the creative content engines of the company in a really short period of time. And I think we're going to be able to do that at scale. So that's one. Two, I think when you look at kind of 10,000 feet, Silicon Valley has done an excellent job of really coming into Hollywood. I mean, the platform that Netflix has built, the platform that basically Amazon has built, and these are incredible companies.
I'd say the platform that Amazon has built is not very good, but they do have the benefit of Amazon behind. Even people who work at Amazon would acknowledge the product could be better.
I think when you look at the number of subscribers, I think they're doing okay. Just from that standpoint. But what we really want to become, we talk about becoming the most technologically capable media company. Believe we have the capability to do that. We're bringing in the appropriate leadership. We just obviously hired our CPO, Dane Glasgow, who was formerly obviously running product at Meta for Facebook, who is obviously a phenomenal leader to come into the business. And we have really deep tech partnerships that are really going to enable, we think, Paramount for the first time to actually build platforms that are competitive with Netflix, that are competitive with Amazon, and actually successfully grow and scale. And I think you've said this, you've talked about this a lot. Given this moment in time that we exist in, great art and great technology need to work hand in hand together to effectuate the transition the overall business is in.
Is there something like concrete about the Paramount Plus platform right now that you think is clearly substandard? And how, like, I've heard you talk about the recommendation algorithm, right, and how you think that could be better. Does having a better recommendation algorithm really going to bring in 10 million new customers or make people spend an extra 2 hours a day with your service?
So you have to do two things. One, let's just talk about the asset that we acquired when we inherited, right? Paramount, as it exists today, operates 3 streaming platforms, 3 separate tech stacks on 2 different clouds, which is both inefficient and wildly expensive. So if you actually said, if I had unlimited resources, this is not how you...
And for those who don't follow, the 3 services are Paramount Plus, Pluto TV, and BET Plus.
Correct. So we're in the process right now of basically consolidating all of those onto a single stack, which will both significantly improve the operational capabilities of the product, and we're doing a lot to basically overhaul every single aspect of the stack. But also, the more data that you obviously get in there, which is the more users, the better you're going to be able to recommend content. So we are definitely overhauling basically the product right now. But in addition to that, to me, technology is really in service of the content, not the other way around. And we're going to make significantly more shows at Paramount Plus. We are investing in sports rights. When you look at the acquisition of the UFC, that is the largest sport that is basically not shared between multiple platforms. And to basically, and they have 100 million fans. They've grown 25% from 2019 to date. They grew at that level sitting behind a double paywall. So we think when you eliminate that double paywall, it's going to open it up and make it much more accessible. Literally one pay-per-view fight is what a Paramount Plus subscription is. And then basically those 100 million fans are going to be able to get access to everything they love. And in addition to that, when you look at the overall sports strategy, which cannot be more important to us, Paramount had a really strong fall and spring sports calendar, but really light in the summer.
You have football in the fall, you have March Madness in the spring.
You have the Masters, which we were incredibly proud to be partners with. And now with UFC, we have a year-long sports strategy. And that, in addition to all of the new originals that we're going to be making for P+, there's going to be more content, there's going to be a better tech product that's going to yield additional engagement and scale.
So I have a follow-up on that, but I'm curious because you mentioned Pluto. You've talked a lot about combining the back end. How likely is it that you just combine all those services into one consumer-facing app, where if you want to watch Pluto, you're just going to Paramount Plus?
So right now we're basically combining the back end. The back end. It's certainly something we've discussed and explored, but not something we're planning to do right now.
And you're in the fun, spending money, showing people you're here to reinvigorate the company phase. When does the less fun part?
So look, one of the things that I think is actually important is this business can be operated a lot more efficiently than it was operated in the past. And we've obviously announced $2 billion in obviously run rate synergies. We've said we're going to meaningfully obviously exceed those targets. And from our perspective, we intend to do that as quickly as possible so that we can basically get that behind us and then have the entire team just building for the future.
So do cuts start before the end of the year?
I can't answer that question.
Let's go to a couple other questions you probably can't answer.
We're going there already. All right.
Have you made an offer yet for Warner Brothers Discovery?
All right. We're talking about tennis?
We'll get to tennis at the end. I don't know if you saw it. I asked Greg Peters who is better at tennis, him or Bill Gates. You can probably answer that question. He dodged, but.
The honest answer, I actually can't answer that tennis. I've never seen either of them play tennis, so I don't feel equipped to be able to do that.
Let's go back to the offer for Warner Brothers Discovery.
Fair. So look, we're a publicly traded company, and I think we're not in a position to be able to comment on rumor or speculation of any kind, because there's a couple of rumors and speculations obviously out there in terms of what we may or may not be doing. But look, what I can't comment on is people to kind of understand our mindset, right? And I actually think, ironically, it was David Zaslav last year that said, consolidation in the media business is important. And the way we approach everything is, first and foremost, what's good for the talent community, what's good for our shareholders in value creation, and what's good for basically storytelling at large. And so from our standpoint, whether we were approach any acquisition, and I actually do think there's a lot of options out there in terms of what actually might be actionable in the near future, we would approach that through the lens of wanting to make more, not less. So
because the natural conclusion, if you were to merge with Warner Bros. Discovery, is you take two companies that combines, I don't remember the content spend between the two of them, but spend billions of dollars, and much as you're combining Skydance and Paramount, you take money out, you would take money out there. Companies that merge don't tend to spend more money on the other side of it.
So what I would say, and again, I'm not going to comment on Warner Bros. Discovery, but you said it when you talked about Paramount. You actually need more content to yield more engagement. And so we would actually want to be in the business through whatever lens we were looking at of actually producing more, more movies, more television series, more to get to scale, because you need that content, you need that great storytelling to yield engagement. And from that standpoint, we're also in the business, first and foremost, of creating long-term value creation. And and one of the things I think I hope we've proven, obviously with our family, is we are in the business of building long-term value for shareholders, and I think we've done that successfully.
You mentioned there are a lot of other things out there that could be actionable. What else is on the list?
Same thing. I can't comment on it.
Okay, I'll do one more. So we were told that you actually made an offer for Warner Brothers Discovery that was rejected.
Same answer.
Okay. It seems like most people think this is, I promise it's not the same question, it's a bridge to something else. Most people think that you guys are the only ones who can get that deal done. And one of the reasons is because of the relationship between your father and the current administration. How would you characterize the relationship between your family and the president at the moment?
Great question. I think we have a good relationship with the administration. And look, I think if you look to that, I do believe other things that have been rumored about, right, are very large-scale players that could potentially create monopolies, obviously, in the ecosystem. And again, I think when you look at the lens of consolidation, for us, I'll keep going back to it, it's always, how do you create long-term value creation? How do you put yourself in the position to produce more content, not less? And how do you ultimately build something that is better for the consumer? Not opportunities that will create things like, too much pricing power. And I think if you look at our business, I hear it all the time. The notion of going to 7 different apps is not the greatest experience from the consumer's point of view. And I think what we look for is really, how do we serve the consumer? How do we serve the talent community, who we are so grateful for the fact that they have really embraced us since this acquisition, and how do we create long-term value for shareholders? Those are going to be the lens in which we always approach everything. And I think we have the capital and resources to be opportunistic when those opportunities arrive, and we do have a good relationship.
So one opportunity you took, and you mentioned earlier, was buying the Free Press. The track record of big media companies like Paramount buying digital media companies like the Free Press is abysmal, at least over the last several years. So why are you buying this company, and what was the thought behind it?
Absolutely. So one, what our goal is in news is we want to become the most trusted destination in news media. That is our goal. And I don't think it's a controversial thing to say right now that the civil discourse that currently exists is not in a great place. And we basically believe in all the things that the Free Press believed in, which is we want to speak to the 70% of the audience that identifies themselves as center left to center right. We believe in the open exchange of ideas, and then fundamentally presenting both sides and allowing the audience to ultimately make their determination about how they feel about it, but they're presented with the facts. And we think that the Free Press recognized some of the issues that have been occurring and built a company as part of the solution to that.
What issues are you referring to there?
The notion of really just saying we want to get back into the trust business, we want to get back into the truth business. And then in addition to that, when you look at news, right, I cannot properly express how much respect and admiration I have for the legacy of CBS News in 60 Minutes. It's remarkable. But also the company does not have a digital strategy. And which is why the Free Press was a critical part of that acquisition, because you need to be able to meet people where they are.
I'm just curious though, isn't it remaining independent-ish?
So basically the Free Press will obviously stay in the digital landscape in which they're going towards, but I also think when you talk about meeting people where they are, that's in broadcast news. That's obviously, on the Free Press's website. That's in podcasts. But that's also eventually going to be in direct-to-consumer. And we do want to actually build a home in the D2C platform, which to my knowledge our competitors are not doing, where you can actually go get all of that in a digital environment, direct-to-consumer, and the Free Press is an accelerant to be able to accomplish that goal.
Doesn't CBS already have a digital news network?
They do, but we think that this basically accelerates and supercharges it.
Based on what you said, you have a lot of respect for CBS News, but in bringing in someone to completely overhaul it, it would suggest that you thought that things weren't operating as well as they could have been. How would you assess it, not just from a business standpoint, but from a content standpoint? Do you feel like the news that they were putting out there was where you want it to be? Do you think there are things they could be doing better or worse?
So as I've kind of said this before, I'm not going to be in the position of ever making political statements. Like we're an entertainment company first,
right?
And we have the viewpoint of if you're breathing, you're our audience, and we basically. So from that standpoint, we want to entertain our audiences first. What I will say, and I've said this, and I said this in a letter I sent out to the team earlier this week, is that I do believe that this is an opportunity when you look at where things sit, that we want to be able to get back to a place where everyone can have dialogue. We believe in civil discourse. We believe in the open exchange and debate of ideas is how you get to the right answer. And we think that there is a responsibility with news to make sure that you are promoting that. But at the end of the day, it's always up to the viewer and the audience to decide. And we're in the business of first and foremost earning their trust. And that is done over time. And we hope that we're going to work really hard to earn our audience's trust every day.
You can understand, though, why when you're talking about restoring trust and speaking to everyone, you put someone in. Barry's background is primarily as an opinion columnist, right? She's not a kind of dyed-in-the-wool news reporter. And there are going to be people at CBS News, and there have been a lot of people journalists outside of CBS News already, who seem very concerned because opinion and news are typically kept separate, and now you have the editorial leader of this news group whose background is in opinion.
Yeah, look, I'll continue to say the same thing. Like, I'm not going to make a political statement. I'm really not going to do it.
No, I'm not asking a political statement, but you can understand maybe why some of the staff is nervous, or I'm sure you and your team are already ready for there to be a bunch of leaks over the next few weeks of people who don't like whatever direction it's going in.
Yeah, Lucas, what I think I said is, like, again, I'll keep going back to it. I think if you look at the value system that basically the Free Press has been operated under, really does align with the value system that we believe in, which I also believe is in line with the legacy of CBS News. And if you actually go to that, I do believe there are areas where we collectively can and will do better. But I also have the utmost respect for the team that exists there. And again, I wouldn't judge us based on what I sit here and say today. Judge us basically over time, as we basically prove to that. Again, like, this is going to be one where we're going to need to demonstrate every single day that we're obviously earning people's trust. I obviously deeply believe in the Free Press. I believe in the team at CBS News. And I believe we're going to accomplish the goal of building that trusted destination news and media.
Now, you and Barry, I don't know if this counts as politics for you, but you have a lot of common ground on a big issue, which is Israel. And you have spoken publicly about it. Your company issued a statement expressing concern about how some artists were speaking about it. Why did you feel the need to speak out on that issue, and how has the blowback been?
Yeah, so look, just to go back to the statement that we made, right, was very simply, we made a statement that was effectively discriminating based on where somebody is from Israel. And I stand by that statement. In addition to that, when you look at what's going on in the world, the fact that we are effectively at a historic peace deal with hostages being returned home as early as this weekend or Monday, I think that is a historic accomplishment, and one that we should all be happy so that those hostages can get home to their families.
I believe that there was a piece about sort of some employees of yours who were upset about the statement that you put out. And I'm just curious, have you heard from it? And I know just from kind of day-to-day life that there are a lot of people in the talent community who feel a little bit differently about this subject than you do. Have you heard from any of them? Has there,
So obviously I saw that piece, and look, we believe in the First Amendment. They are 100% entitled to their opinion. We're entitled to ours, and then no, we haven't heard from anybody else directly.
Got it. We haven't talked about your dad at all, who is the biggest shareholder in your company, I believe, or one of.
Yeah, absolutely.
The deal that you don't want to talk about that you might do would also be thanks in part to his largesse. What advice has he given you about running a big company, and what is the relationship between the two of you like?
So look, my father and I couldn't have a better relationship. We talk just about every day or every other day. Look, he's a pretty phenomenal mentor, and I think especially when you look at it from a shareholder capacity, I think he has about as good of a track record as you can get for actually creating value. If you look at the growth of Oracle this year, across everything he's done in our businesses, and as well as, our stock has obviously also performed since we closed.
Yeah.
And so, from that standpoint, he is focused on how do we maximize value for our shareholders. I think he's one of the best in the world at doing that. And I think that's a voice that everyone should be really happy about, the fact that that's obviously, helping to guide and steer the company. So from that standpoint, and look, the other thing I would say is, I've had phenomenal mentors that I'm grateful to, including Steve Jobs and David Geffen, and honestly, I'm grateful for everything I've been able to learn from them, and we couldn't have a better relationship.
And when you say guide and steer, so are you, like, how often you talk to your dad every day? You're talking about the company every day? Like, is he, I think a lot of people who work there want to know, right? Like, is ultimately, how involved is Larry Ellison going to be in Paramount?
So look, I run the company day to day. Make no mistake about that. He is the largest shareholder in the business, and I think what's important for everybody to know is the way he approaches this is how do we maximize value for our shareholders, and he's exceptional at that.
Given the amount of money that you guys have at your disposal, you mentioned shareholders. Like, why not just take the company private?
Great question. One, we actually think it's really simple. It goes back to that question of value. We think there is actually more value and more opportunity in being a public company than being a private company.
And so you've got Paramount. Your dad seems to be involved in the new ownership consortium for TikTok in the U.S. You maybe have the Warner Brothers Discovery deal. What do you say to people?
You're going right to questions I can't actually answer.
No, but this is. I think you can answer this one. What do you say to people who are concerned that there's just like an Ellison/Ellison Trump plot to just like corner the media business? You've got Elon with Twitter. They're.
No, I know where you're going. Look, it's under the headline of doing better. I can only speak to. Look, I think I can speak to my personal state of mind. Right? Is that fair? Am I permitted to do that? So. What I can tell you is that conversation has never once been discussed or brought up. When we basically approach things, it is going back to always how do we create basically value for shareholders. And look, go back to what I've been doing like the last 15 years of my life, right? I mean, like this is, sorry, I kind of look at this and I'm like, does the last 20 plus years of my life not equate? And what I mean by that is I went to film school at USC, right? I literally started in this business when I was 18 years old. I fell in love with movies when I was literally a little kid. And, my mom and I would go to the movies every single weekend. That's literally what we did without fail. We went 52 weeks a year and just saw anything that was playing. And, we had a VHS collection of, at home where like me and my sister's idea of like the greatest day on a Sunday was let's go watch all the Rocky movies back to back in one day, or let's go watch the Star Wars trilogy. So I've literally loved this business and loved storytelling since I was a kid. I went to school for it. I built Skydance and launched it in 2010, really with the understanding that the disruption between the bridge that has been built between Silicon Valley and Hollywood was going to happen. We saw that over 15 years ago. We built a company that was, the tip of the spear for that disruption on the content creation side, with one of our guiding thematics always being where entertainment is heading, right? The Slate deal we did where we got all of the crown jewels and Paramount's franchises without taking things that are normally put into those kind of deals was revolutionary at the time. Our second series, Grace and Frankie, we took to Netflix before House of Cards was released because we believed in the anything, anywhere, anytime, and any device before it had been proven. We've taken early bets into interactive and virtual reality, and we took tentpole movies direct to consumer during a time period where we thought that was the right thing to do. So from that standpoint, I have always loved and believed in this business. I love storytelling. I believe in the value of basically entertainment and media and what these stories mean, and it's a privilege to get to tell them in our culture. And as it relates to news, which is the other part of the question you're asking, we really do want to be in the trust business first and foremost. We really do want to talk to that 70% of the audience, and we want to get back to having that level of civil discourse. So none of those things that have been talked about have ever been discussed inside of my relationship with my dad.
On the tech front, because you talk about that kind of seeing the friction between Hollywood and Silicon Valley early. The other sort of big boogeyman in the news right now is AI. What is your perception of Sora? Are you guys opting out of your product being in there? How are you thinking about using AI?
Yeah, so look, I'd say two things to that, right? Like fundamentally, we are in the business of building, creating, and protecting value of intellectual property. So we have been in that business. We always continue to be in that business. Look, there's a really healthy debate around inputs that I don't really want to get into because we don't have enough time. But I think when you look at the outputs, those need to be protected. Copyright basically needs to be protected on the outputs of those businesses.
Interesting.
He's the samurai warrior of Silicon Valley.
Larry's attitude is, if you want to compete against me, then be prepared to be crushed.
Larry Ellison started Oracle Software over 30 years ago, and it has made him the highest paid executive over the last decade, with a total compensation of $1.84 billion.
There was nobody better than Larry at making a customer believe that he could change that person's business life with his product.
He sees around the corner well before many of us get to the end of the street.
He'll do whatever it takes to win. In the office,
SAP, the German software firm, was ordered to pay Oracle $1.3 billion.
Or on the ocean.
There is absolutely no doubt that he hates to lose.
His company's technology has become the backbone of the world's information systems, from government to online commerce. The brazen billionaire is an ambitious provocateur with a singular management style.
I have a theory that Larry's succession plan for Oracle is he is trying to figure out a way that when he's 6 feet under in a grave, he can still run Oracle.
Howdy, read, Captain.
Loud and clear. Okay.
If you know anything about Oracle's Larry Ellison, it probably goes something like this.
I've got a Bugatti, the fastest car in the world.
His home cost $200 million.
The fastest sailboat that's ever been built. I'm addicted to winning. The more you win, the more you want to win.
He's a high-flying adrenaline junkie and an unapologetic collector of expensive toys and real estate.
That really takes my mind off of work.
He spent $400 million to bring the 2010 America's Cup, the oldest active trophy in sports, back to America for the first time in 15 years. But his success comes from something far less flashy. Some of the world's most essential software. Tools you use every day, but probably don't realize that it's his company making them work.
Almost everybody in the world uses Oracle. They just don't know it. If you do any kind of government transaction with almost any government in the world, any business transaction with almost any internet business in the world or any traditional business, if you have a credit card, if you have a cell phone, if you have any of the modern things in life, if you live today, I think you probably use Oracle.
Larry Ellison arguably created the most important computer software you never heard of. He was the man behind the curtain for a tremendous change in the way we all live.
Ellison remained behind that curtain when we tried to reach him to participate in this program. Born in the Bronx in 1944, Ellison grew up in Chicago. When he was 12, his father bluntly gave him some surprising news.
My dad just said right before dinner, oh, by the way, you were adopted and we're having meatloaf tonight. It was so shocking, I just put it away and thought about it for years without really, confronting all and realizing all of the implications.
He dropped out of college twice. Ellison was a mediocre student and disliked formal education. Mike Wilson is an editor for the St. Petersburg Times and interviewed Ellison extensively for his biography.
Larry was not interested in following the rules at school, in the family, or anywhere else. Larry needed to get out from underneath the shadow of Lewis Ellison and prove to his father that he could make something of himself.
His flair for the fast lane was obvious early.
Larry went out and bought himself a turquoise blue Thunderbird. He was a stylish guy. He wanted to impress people. He got in that car and he drove it to California. And Larry Ellison was a young man with a great deal of potential. His trip to California was critical to who he would become.
Ellison settled in Berkeley and set out to make a living writing code. In 1973, he worked at the computer electronics maker Amdahl. There, he met Stuart Fagan. They've remained friends for over 35 years.
I went into my cubicle the first day I worked there, and across the hall were a couple of guys who never seemed to do any work. They just talked all the time. And one of them did nothing but talk about himself, how smart he was, how stupid everyone else was, and how he really ought to be running everything. And that was Larry Ellison.
Ellison was a talented but impatient programmer, desperate to find something of his own to control.
To say he had the attention span of a tumbleweed is to overestimate it. I would say more the attention span of a lightning bolt.
But his attention focused when he landed a job at a company called Ampex. Ampex was struggling with a project funded by, of all places, the information-driven CIA. The project was codenamed Oracle. The CIA needed a system to store and retrieve vast amounts of foreign intelligence, concerned with its various sensitive operations and missions. For Ellison, it was the job of a lifetime, and would plant the seeds for his future. In the 1970s, information storage meant putting data on reel-to-reel tape, which was just too slow and inconsistent for the CIA, and too slow for Ellison. He left Ampex and later started his own company with his friend and programming genius, Bob Miner.
Bob and Larry were a perfect odd couple for Silicon Valley. Bob had all of the engineering smarts, the technical ability. Larry, on the other hand, had the sales ability, the visionary ability, the ability to go to a customer and explain, here's how your business can change.
With this original handwritten sign and $1,200, they started Software Development Laboratories, or SDL. Ellison recruited friends Ed Oates and Stuart Fagan to help program.
He did want me to join him, and he's going to start some kind of company, and I thought that was the stupidest idea I'd ever heard, because Larry wasn't famous for finishing things. I used to say he's a total flake and he'll never amount to anything, and I was half right.
Ellison's new company needed a product. And after reading an obscure IBM research paper, he thought he had it. A method of sorting information that was vastly superior to anything that had come before. It was called a relational database. According to Gary Bloom, who worked with Ellison for 14 years, it was a complex name, but a simple idea.
Relational database, what is it? It's a collection of data and information that's very simply put into a format that makes it very easy to search and find that information. It's nothing more complicated than that.
IBM didn't see the potential of what they had. Ellison did.
I said, oh my God, we can beat IBM to market because IBM doesn't believe in their own idea.
Ellison believed and asked programmer Bruce Scott to start writing code.
For me, it's just cool technology and kind of fun. But for Larry, he saw a company out of it. He saw a market out of it.
We weren't sure Larry was right, but we needed the jobs, and it was a struggle all the time. Larry was under a lot of pressure to get some money in somehow.
In 1977, at age 34, Larry Ellison's startup software company was busy creating a smart database they thought would revolutionize how companies retrieve, manage, and analyze data.
3 rooms and a little lobby area. There were 4 of us who were writing programs. Larry was mostly involved in finding customers. And that was a bizarre idea because we had no software.
So all the things that you would read in books of somebody being a leader, he wasn't. But he was tenacious. He would never give up on anything.
Ellison chased and cajoled customers, becoming the company's chief evangelist.
There was nobody better than Larry at making a business person, making a customer believe that he could change that person's business life with his product.
Knowing they still needed a smarter solution for the monumental task of managing worldwide intelligence, Ellison sold his database to the CIA, his first customer. He called the new software Oracle version 2.
There was no version 1 because everyone thought, no one buys version 1, it's buggy. So we started with version 2. Well, our version 2 was at least as buggy as anyone's version 1. And I describe those early versions as the Roach Motel of databases. The data went in, but it didn't come out.
In 1982, Ellison also took the name Oracle for his company. He targeted government agencies and major corporations in his own unique way.
I remember him telling me very distinctly one time, Bruce, we can't be successful unless we lie to customers.
For some reason, Larry told the Bank of America, I think he told us there were 15 of us, when in fact there were 5 of us. Now, I'm not sure why the Bank of America would think differently of you if you're 5 or 15. But Larry had given them a number which was a little larger than reality.
Ellison also was sharpening a sales philosophy rooted in a trip he had taken to Japan in the early 1970s.
I was in Japan and I was talking to a Japanese business executive, and he told me, that the problem with America is that we just have no stomach for competition. In Japan, we believe our competitors are stealing the rice out of the mouths of our children. In Japan, we think anything less than 100% market share is not enough.
His take-no-prisoners approach became known as the Oracle Way.
The Oracle Way in the early to mid-'80s was just to win, almost by any means necessary.
Larry's attitude is if you want to compete against me, then you better be prepared to be crushed, or don't compete against me.
His product, the Oracle Database, took off like a jet fighter in one of his ads. And in 1986, Oracle went public. His 39% stake in the company was worth a stunning $93 million. The IPO was a huge hit, but was overshadowed the very next day by Microsoft's public offering, which made Bill Gates' stake worth a whopping $350 million. In 1989, Ellison moved Oracle to this mammoth campus in Redwood Shores, California, which became known as the Emerald City, a reference to the Wizard of Oz, or as one newspaper described it, Larryland. And everyone knew who was the wizard.
When I ordered a Ferrari 348, and I was going to get the first 348 in California, Larry ordered one from somewhere on the East Coast and got it shipped in before I got mine. He didn't want to be the second one. He wanted to be the first one.
His obsession to be first took its toll.
Oracle hit a wall. These aggressive sales practices started to cause serious problems.
Oracle's aggressive sales practices in the 80s turned the company into an accountant's nightmare.
The sales force was so aggressive, so willing to close a deal, and there were so few business controls over the makeup of those deals. Then we started having the problem of we certainly signed some bad contracts.
They were also selling products that hadn't yet been created.
Oracle was selling a lot of futures, so you were taking a lot of money in, a lot of revenue in for future deliverables. Well, then the question comes, when you finally have those deliverables, now who do you sell them to? You already sold it to everybody. You sold it to them 3 years before you had it.
It didn't help the company's prospects that their latest product was a dud. Oracle version 6 was riddled with bugs. Customers were frustrated and sales plummeted.
It's sometimes characterized as the near-death experience of Oracle in the early 90s, and it was. We weren't cutting fat. We were cutting into muscle, and you might even say in a couple of cases, we're cutting a couple limbs off.
With Oracle's stock price in freefall, so was Ellison's personal fortune. By November 1st, 1990, he had lost $790 million. His company was nearly $1 billion operation, and it was failing.
Larry was trying to achieve this greatness. He was building towards that all the time, and now he was, in a sense, a laughingstock. It was devastating for him.
We're all a bunch of kids that grew up with the business. And we weren't kids anymore, and the business wasn't a little business anymore, it was big business, and we had to replace virtually all of senior management. And it was a very painful process.
He convinced well-known management and sales consultant Ray Lane to join the company.
And what he brought was what I'd characterize as operational discipline and a maturity around this is how a big business runs. It was chaotic, it was painful. Nobody wanted to go through that again. And so the culture was kind of reset.
But the company's real savior came in the form of a new product. Zach Nelson was Oracle's youngest marketing executive.
Oracle 7 was a spectacular product. The future was incredibly bright. And I think everybody within Oracle at that time certainly knew it and could sense it.
It wasn't just incrementally better, it was orders of magnitude better.
Ellison's company had dodged its near-death experience. In 1994, Oracle revenues passed the $2 billion mark, and his stock, as a result, was worth nearly $3 billion. For Ellison, that wasn't nearly enough. To become software's sole heavyweight, Ellison knew he had to pick a fight with the reigning champion, Bill Gates.
He seemed to be personally disappointed he wasn't wealthier than Bill Gates. It's the scorecard. And if you weren't number one, if you weren't richest, you weren't on the top, you weren't the best. It was the scorecard, and he was losing.
I think that Larry thought he was in tremendous competition with Bill Gates, and maybe Gates didn't think so much. Larry wanted to be recognized as the greatest innovator, salesman, evangelist in the world of software. And he had a steep battle going up against the guy who had put his software in every single personal computer practically in the world.
Ellison was fixated on Gates. He would later admit publicly to hiring private detectives to dig up dirt on him. Gates' new product, Windows 95, had the entire tech world buzzing, including Ellison himself in this appearance on The Charlie Rose Show.
This Windows 95 is an enormously complicated piece of software. And the idea that people are going to install this in their households and manage these things in their household, to me, is hilarious. And it's time for something that's easier to use. Well, this is clearly part of our strategy to dethrone Microsoft. But the way you dethrone Microsoft is not simply to throw darts at Bill Gates and hate and envy Bill Gates. You have to think about products and create products that are better than the products that Microsoft is selling.
Ellison made a move into the consumer device market. He called it the Network Computer, or NC.
He launched the network computer with great fanfare.
The computers we currently make, personal computers, are rather expensive, and very, very complex. So we've introduced this new class of computer, and for normal human beings, it's very low cost. Very low cost, very lightweight. Now every person can use a computer because they're low cost and very easy to use.
You can surf the net, you can do email on, and he said, and it's going to be $500. It's kind of an internet appliance, so to speak, no different than your toaster.
I can remember having a discussion with him saying, the internet makes it possible to imagine a world without Microsoft's operating system on every desktop. And that was really, the birth of the NC.
Ellison went on a campaign to promote the power of his new baby on the web, while mocking the popular PC.
I hate the PC with a passion. Put the stuff on the net. It's bits. Don't put bits in cardboard in trucks to stores. Me go to the store, pick this stuff out. It's insane. I love the internet.
But falling PC prices meant the NC was destined to fail.
I don't think there was anything wrong with the idea. I actually just think it was premature. 5 years later, it would have won the world. And the only difference is all the PC manufacturers, Dell, HP, everybody else, Gateway, what did they do? They created a $500 PC that surfs the web really well, and it does email really well.
And that shut down Ellison's venture into the consumer market. His NC was too far ahead of its time, but his vision of the internet was still right on target.
Oracle's database became the underpinnings of all of these internet services that we take for granted today. It was Expedia, Amazon, eBay, go down the list of applications. All of those are storing all that information, retrieving that information, delivering that information, doing those transactions through the Oracle database. People thought Larry was crazy. Now, he's a genius.
Kind of solved the biggest IT problem in history.
By 2000, Larry Ellison's company, Oracle, was among the elite tech companies in the world. But internal struggles would soon force out the company's president and chief operating officer, Ray Lane, who had risen to second in command and heir apparent. He described the culture at the company he left.
It wasn't good enough for a salesman to make their quota. They had to make 200% of their quota. It was, the top 10% get rewarded millions, and everybody else, falls by the web. They're weak soldiers, shoot them.
A departing Lane said he didn't fit into Oracle's system and that the only person making decisions at Oracle is Larry.
Lots of people that transitioned in and out of Oracle got confused who was in charge. And that's a pretty volatile, that's like a galactic collision, where two stars hit, and it's a pretty violent explosion.
Oracle, the company, was on a roll, but was lagging behind in one key area.
We're still fighting to be relevant in the applications world.
We're the number 2 application provider in the world, and we're number 2 in ERP behind SAP. Boy, this number 2 is getting old. And we're number 2.
Not for long.
We're number 2 in CRM behind Siebel, but we're growing faster than SAP, and we're growing faster than Siebel, and we're determined to become number 1 in applications like we're number 1 in database.
To get to number 1, Ellison needed to do something his company had long avoided: buying new technology through acquisitions.
When he came to that conclusion, he opened his wallet and bet far bigger than anyone else did. And in fact, he did it far faster than anyone else did.
Ellison wanted to bundle new application software with Oracle's successful product line. In 2003, he targeted the company PeopleSoft in a hostile takeover attempt. The Department of Justice sued Oracle on antitrust grounds, charging the takeover would empower the company to illegally raise rates and impair innovation. After a 1.5-year-long battle, the courts sided with Oracle. Ellison finally acquired PeopleSoft for $10.3 billion.
It's very rare that someone gets sued by the government and they actually win. It's just another testament to this guy's tenacity. Most guys would have maybe walked away from that.
Instead, Ellison stepped it up. Over the next 5 years, he would spend close to $34 billion acquiring 52 companies. Heather Bellini is Senior Managing Director of the Technology Research Team at